How often do you, as a camp pro, hear people say, but we've always done it this way? Or how often do you yourself feel stuck in a rut uh, because of this year, because of your work habits, etc.? Today, we're going to be talking about how to get unstuck on the CampHacker podcast. Good day, everybody, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. I am Travis Allison from Go Camp Pro, and I am glad to have you here with us today.
Hi, my name is Chris Hudson. I'm the camp director of a little place called Camp Highlight. It's a one-week sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ parents.
And my name is Gabrielle Rail. I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Waro. And Camp Waro is an all-girls camp in the Laurentian Mountains of Quebec, Canada. And we focus on creating a positive female community. And we do that while speaking in French and in English.
And my name's Joe Richards. I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Summer Camp and Retreat Facility in Fingal, Ontario. And we're part of the United Church of Canada Camping Network.
Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to have the three of you here with me today. Today, we are talking about how to get unstuck. And I think there are lots of different ways that we get stuck as camp leaders. But I actually am going to change things up a little bit just because I think I want to break the rhythm a little bit for the recording. I am curious from each of you, just thinking about not being stuck at all. This is separate of that. Thinking about that, what is your favorite moment of the day at camp? What is the moment in the day that you most appreciate and think this is it? This is why I do what I do.
I got mine. For me, it's just before mealtime, and the kids are outside waiting in line, and the staff are inside getting things set up. And I go and chat with the different age groups, and they're just so sassy and so not intimidated by me, and talk back, and it is absolutely fantastic. It just shows me how comfortable they are, and I get to hear about their day, and it doesn't matter if they're 8 years old or 15. They're just so chitty chatty before that. I love being just outside the dining room just before everybody goes in.
Amazing. That's great.
I have a bunch. That's a great one right before meals because they're hungry, so they're just their eyes are wide open. My favorite is at night if I have time while they're getting ready to go to bed. I'll like do rounds through the cabins and just pop in just to say hello and just check in with the counselors. And it's my rock star moment because you walk in and everyone's like, Chris is here. And they're running and pulling other kids out of bed. It's Chris. And they all run up to tell me what their day has been like as if I haven't seen them all day long.
Yeah. So awesome.
And I just, I get all the hugs. They want to show me all their backflips and splits and all the other stuff that they can do. And I basically have to back out being like, all right, bye everybody. Bye. And it's fun. I'd like to see them so excited, and all I'm doing is walking in. That's great. I miss the days when I could be excited by such simple things.
Yeah, I like the term rock star moment. My favorite part of the day is chapel because that's the one part of the day that I dedicate to being with campers. I'm not at camp in the evenings, which might sound weird to some people, but I have a camp director and I have a leadership team, and I leave that to them. That's their time, and I don't always eat in the dining hall because I eat a different menu than camp serves. And so chapel time is the one time during the day where I play guitar. And so the funny thing is a lot of kids have this like, oh, this is Joe when he plays guitar at chapel. And they think that's what I do. And
that's Joe's job.
That's Joe's job. Joe plays guitar at chapel. And that's how they'll introduce me to their parents on Friday. They were like, this is Joe. He plays guitar at chapel. And their parents are like, give this weird look like, and does like camp stuff. But that is it's my favorite moment because I've just made it so that's to interrupt that time would have to take something dramatic, like a health inspector or a labor inspector. But if there's a sewage problem at that moment in time, I have a maintenance guy who can deal with that. I need to go play guitar at chapel. And I love the same thing. Kids share their day so far and staff member, right? It's just a great time to interact. It's my favorite part.
That's awesome. And I think for me, I'm not a morning person, but I would train myself to get up early in the morning so I could have some time by myself. Usually go for a walk, take the dogs, and I would go back into the woods, not around the part of camp that gets used a lot. But it was always fun to be walking back at right as all the cabins are waking up and hear all the cabins. And sometimes you hear counselors that are just have that extra special wake up that's just so kind, and they're singing, and the kids are joining in. You hear people out on the porches of their cabins urging others to hurry up and stuff. And I just love that moment of camp waking up. It's such a fun place to be. Well, thank you. I wanted to feel camp before we got talking about camp, and so I'm grateful to the three of you for that.
Thank you.
So what do we do when we're stuck? We picked this topic today because I think that a lot of us feel stuck. We're recording this in the middle of February 2021, and hopefully somebody listens to this in the future and says, oh, I remember that time. I know that a lot of camp directors are feeling that they just don't know how to proceed, that there's so many things holding them back. And we wanted to see if we could talk about how to get out of that. But there are other moments of camp, even before a COVID year, that the camps get really stuck, or people get stuck in their work, in the way they do things, and need to shake that up. So I think we've done a pretty good job this year in the CampHacker podcast talking about ways to get yourself mentally prepared, or to encourage yourself to dig a little deeper and prepare for lots of different things. But there is an overwhelming feeling of I'm just waiting at this point. And I wonder for you, Gab, when you feel like things are a little beyond what you can do, what are you doing inside yourself or working on, et cetera, just to get past, just get past that stuck feeling that's going on right now?
Acknowledge that I am stuck is the first step. I think sometimes I work on a problem and I can't get past it, and I keep working and working, and it's almost like I'm hitting into a brick wall, and I realize eventually, oh, I'm stuck. And then it's sort of asking, why am I stuck? Is there certain questions that pop up, such as, fine, I don't have the finances to do something, staff members won't, there won't be a buy-in between staff members or campers. What is that thing that is um keeping me in that spot? And then I tend to problem solve with somebody else from the outside of my brain, not the many people in my brain that have lots of opinions. So somebody outside my brain, I process with them. But I think that the first piece or the second piece of why you're stuck is important, because it can apply to so many things. I think I look at camps and all the awesome things that we do at camp, but we don't necessarily share how we do that online. And I've spoken to some camps about why they don't share their sort of expertise online. And a lot of it has to do with saying, there's a lot of leadership stuff already out there. There's a lot of teachers that put stuff out there. And I think that we get in our own head that we're not as good, or we're competing with so many different voices. And it's sort of flipping that narrative in your brain, from competing to contributing, if you will. So I think that piece to understand why you're stuck, is really, really important. And the problem solving should come after.
I want to say that was so awesomely stated. I was going to say something, but now it just sounds like crap compared to that.
No.
That was really great.
Don't be stuck, Chris.
just
contribute.
That was. No, I need more time to think. Joe,
Yeah.
you're up, Joe.
The idea of, like, I forget Travis's question because I was paying attention to Gab. And the reality is, knowing when you're stuck can be a hard part as well. We don't always know that we're stuck. Sometimes we just keep doing. So busy work leads to not getting stuff done. And
Totally.
you can feel like you're getting very little things done, but it's just busy work. You're not getting things done. When I feel stuck, which I don't often feel stuck, because my brain jumps. If for people who've known me for years, my brain is going, 100 different directions all the time, and I'm totally comfortable with it. There are times where when I need to shift if I'm working on a project and I need to shift, I go to, something else, to another project. But when I'm truly stuck and I need a victory, it's those small victories that get you out of the rut. The small victories are what I call at camp completable tasks, because a ton of what we do on a daily basis, there's no end, right?
So many
Like,
steps. Yeah.
yeah, you're just continually planning, you're continually registering kids, right? I think of a chef in a restaurant. You serve a meal, that meal goes out, that's done, right? Like you've done it. That's awesome. And for me at camp, it can be cutting lawn, cutting down a tree with a chainsaw. It can be building something that I know kids are going to use. It can be, um, right, playing guitar at chapel. Any of those are things where there's a start. I did it. It's done. Um, and and I think that's one of the things right now that I'm feeling is that we have no idea when this is going to be done. This thing called, COVID-19, this thing, who knows when it'll be done. But the idea of small victories and being comfortable with letting your stuckness sit is another trick as well, which is a weird phrase, but um years ago on this podcast, my tool of the week, I still remember this, was uh, taking like 20 minutes to half an hour just to sit and think. Not meditate, but like just you can choose to meditate, but that's fine. But just to sit and think, and thinking about things is the way I work through them. So I rarely feel stuck when I'm sort of playing the game, the scenario. I use the word play a lot. Like, you get what we're doing right now is we're just playing with money. We're trying to find money so that we don't go out of business, right? So we're just playing with, okay, well, where's that money coming from? From donors, from government, from services, and how do I best use that money? And that's just part of my themes when I do strengths training stuff. Is strategic is my number one theme in the Gallup strengths stuff. And so for me, it's just like, great, well, where do we go from here? So getting stuck is yeah, if, and I said it either last week or a couple of weeks ago, I said the phrase that, we've always done it that way are the final words of a dying church. That is that is what the words are. So if that's what gets us stuck as camp, you need to be really careful.
That was also really great. Wow.
Thanks.
Everyone's just firing 100% tonight. I love it. Uh, when I think of being stuck, I think of being stuck creatively at camp as
Yep.
far
Definitely.
as programmatically and writing. Like we write, Camp Highlight, we write everything out. The kids are always stunned when they grow up and want to work there, that it's like a real monumental script for every single thing that happens. Not necessarily word for word, but minute by minute, you could look at a document and be like, this is where everybody is, and this is what everybody's doing, and this is what everybody's saying. Um, and so from year to year, we do the cut, paste, and tweak. We're like, okay, well, this is what we did last year. Um, and I am let me be honest on this podcast. I am a rigid person. I'm very much like, once I get something the way that I want it, be like, wouldn't it just be great if it's this way all the time? Like, why mess with the formula? But also there's the other part of me that loves chaos, especially when it comes to entertainment. And I'm in the entertainment field, right? So I really challenge myself and the team to come up with twists on everything that is happening, right? Everything that we normally do. Um, Outside of the basics, like we don't want twists around like meals necessarily or bedtime. Like, it's not a twist like, yeah, everyone switch cabins or bunks. Like, no, that's a ridiculous. We don't need chaos there. But I challenge the team to be like, let's come up with a new way to do game show night. Like they've done it, and be like, well, they really loved it. I know they loved it, but they didn't love it until they loved it, right? They didn't love it until we presented it to them the first time. So think about how much they'll love something if the next thing that we present to them. Um, how to get unstuck? Like, how do I actually get there? I'll be honest. I always be every year I'm like, let's just start from scratch. Let's just start over and just build from the ground up and just see what happens. And then what happens is that time and effort are constrained, and so we end up with something that's 60 to 80% of what we did last year, right? But I think the effort and the goal of making it entertaining and different enough while still maintaining some sort of core continuity is really important to me. I don't know if I talked about so much how I get unstuck. It's just I'm constantly challenging myself to not cookie cutter what we've done before.
Well, yourself and your camp, like the camp community, it sounds like, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. The staff is big on, can't we just do it the way we did last year, because they don't want to learn anything new. And I totally get it, because it's great for me to be like, make everything different. I'm going to go back to my cabin. It's, that's easy for me, but I try and lead by example.
Yeah. What were you thinking, Joe?
Well, I was thinking of that idea. So I have a ton of friends. When years ago when I was younger, I had this idea that I would be a motivational speaker. I happen to have a ton of friends who do that have done that as their life for 30 years now. And this is where the struggle, as Chris said, right, is um, they'll present the same talk or have 3 or 4 talks and just do those talks for like 5 to 7 years and then produce a new one and sort of overlap them. And I think that the idea of doing only what's comfortable, there's 2 ways to think about that. This goes to the fewer things you have to think about, the more you can be creative in other ways, right? So I've thought about wearing just blue shirts with orange undershirts and khaki pants and just having that, or khaki shorts, and that's my uniform every day, all day. So then I don't need to go to the closet and be like, what am I going to wear today? Because I just don't want to use the mental energy on this. Many people have spoken to that topic. And at camp, it's easy for us to say this worked. And I've had program directors do that. I introduced a game many years ago when I was fairly new here called Sponge Wars. And one summer I had a program director do it every week without fail for 8 weeks in a row. And it sucked 7 of those weeks because she didn't understand. She either learned Sponge Wars from someone who learned it from me, right? Like it was watered down. Get it?
No,
that's a good one.
Please continue. Absolutely
and
not.
and and I was like, well, Sponge Wars is supposed to like have music and like a commentator, and it's just supposed to be it is controlled chaos. And so then I went out and led Sponge Wars one week, and they were like, wow, this is not what we were playing. I was like, I know. But I think that's the other thing with camp is sometimes we get stuck to do the same thing because it's easy, and because we think that that's the way. Because we were successful at it, we think everybody will be successful at that thing, as opposed to letting them create their own success.
Yeah, well, it's easy and it works, right? It's demonstrated that it works. And so on one level, you tell yourself, well, it'd be crazy for us to switch this up. Like I was here last year and it killed. Like, won't it kill again? So I understand that. Where does the stuckness come in though? Because there's something about pulling out greatest hits and there's something about innovating. Now, Joe, when you were saying like when someone else was doing Sponge Wars, how different it was. First of all, that's why we write everything down meticulously. Just so it's like, okay, you want to do this, then you're going to do it right. Or you're going to do something else, but we're not going to do anything halfway. But like, where does the stuckness come in for you then? Like,
Stuckness is a question in that specific, Chris, is micromanagement, right? So if I write everything down and say this is the exact way you do it, am I not micromanaging somebody else's ability to be the program director? I've often used this phrase. I've often used the phrase that am I going to program direct the same way Chris is going to, right? Or that Elmo's going to, or that Diggs is going to? Because if I wanted to program direct, you know what job I would give myself? I would make myself the program director. The reason you hire them is so that there's a difference.
But when you hire people, you give them a manual. So it's not
Mhm.
micromanagement necessarily. That's not the way that I see it, because the reason why everything's written down is that it's like, listen, this is what has worked. This is what has killed. This is a great jumping off point if you want to go somewhere creatively. But when you do go there creatively, you have to put as much thought into that as I did in writing this script for you. I'm not saying that you have to do it this way. I'm saying this is the way that we do everything. This is the way, with intention, with a goal, and with clearly thought out steps.
That is what we call the framework.
Yeah.
We will let you be whoever you want to be within this framework.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that we're not going to let you change meal times. We're not going to let you change these things. You can be as creative as you want to be within this framework. The reason I don't care that Sponge Wars was played differently is because that's the way things happen at camp. That's the way things evolve. You get a brand new game sometimes that people call Sponge Wars, but isn't Sponge Wars. It's the same way that camp songs, right? We have a rule at camp that you're not allowed to correct somebody who's leading a song in front of 100 people. And if they lead a song and it kills, even though it's not the way that I learned that song, you know what? More power to you, right? And that's how variations, and so that's where I think the less we try to control people, the more freedom they have, the less they will get stuck. Maybe, I don't know.
I think that's a personality thing, though, Joe. Like, you hate the rigidity. You would hate that rigidity imposed on you, so you don't impose it on others. Other people would be like, where are the guardrails? Like, if I have the guardrails, I can be creative within the guardrails. And I can be more creative because I know what the edges of this are. So, Gab, how do you encourage creativity, unstuckness? How do you encourage your staff in their jobs to get out of a rut, etc.?
I think the philosophy that is very transparent within our organization, especially since it's been around for such a long time, is two things. Is one that we're building off of the shoulders of the people that came before us. Meaning everything that we do, we need to evaluate and see, do we change it or do we keep it similar? But the goal is that because of the work that came before us, we can do better. And that's imposed, and not imposed, but that is part of our philosophy. And I see that with my leadership team, and I see that with my staff, and they understand that. And it's a sense of excitement. It's exciting to see what you can build on. And I think in camps, there's so many things that you can work on that can create a sense of being stuck, especially if you're coming into an organization in the first couple of years. You might see right when you enter the amount of things that you might need to change, and it can be daunting. And where do you start? And if you do bit by bit, I find that to be helpful. So one, we try to make everything better, always. And two, part of our history is change. And that goes with the first piece. So it is about looking at our end goal and seeing, is there a different path that we should be taking this year, and what could that be? But I think, to what Chris and Joe were speaking about, if you have too many things on your plate, if you're not excited about it, if you're doing busy work to maybe um, not leave room for those conversations, that creativity, that play, it's really difficult to explore those other paths. And with our staff members, it's important that they understand what mistakes you're flexible in, and what learning curves are appropriate and which ones aren't. So certain rules and regulations, there's no elasticity. But I'm very comfortable with somebody that's trying on stage, teaching a song, failing miserably, and debriefing afterwards and saying, "Okay, tomorrow you're doing it again, and let's do this the way that I know you can," and supporting them. And I'm very, very fine with that. So they understand, I hope, that trying is celebrated, and that mistakes is the way that we need to. That's how we evolve. If they're afraid to try, then we're never going to evolve as an organization. And yes. So for my staff, I think that's what I try to focus on.
That's the key though, isn't it? Right? Because if you don't emphasize like it's okay to try and fail, then that's when people get stuck, right? I'm just going to do this thing because I know that it
Because it
works.
works. Yep.
Yeah, and you
You
have to
know?
you have to prove it to them.
Mhm.
You have to show them during staff training, all and celebrate those mistakes throughout staff training so they understand that that's true. And then when the campers arrive, you have to reprove that to them, and earn their trust. There's a good reason why people are afraid of mistakes, and and they want to impress you, and that's not bad. It's just that it makes them very, very nervous to try. So um, we can say it, but we have to prove it.
And I think it's generational too, like
Sure.
the act of problem solving and the act of trying things and maybe making mistakes can be harder for people who have different personality types or different generations. Whatever their leadership was, we have to be sensitive to that. But yeah, I think the act of um having people try, showing people that trying is what we celebrate, not succeeding. Although when you have tried and then succeeded, then we celebrate.
Sure.
But then we demonstrate that's part of our culture. I think that's
Yeah.
incredibly important. And
I
I
think
come back to, sorry, Joe. I come back to building a culture of problem solving. So like,
Mm-hmm.
the first question I'm going to ask you when you say you have a problem is, what have you tried? So
Yep.
you better be ready to answer that. And I think that that's all part of getting unstuck as well. What were you thinking, Joe?
I don't know. I was listening to you there at the end, so I
Oh, I
I
appreciate
lost
listening.
it. It's this idea that I think what I was thinking is putting it in the bigger context for us as executive directors and directors now, is that when we let people try and let people fail, what we're dealing with staff is a group of people who has not been taught to fail well, right? They're getting amazing marks in school because schools are unwilling to tell them they suck, because then their parents will come after the school, right? So
Oh, that's so generational, right? Wow.
it's very generational, and here in Ontario I notice it in when I go to high schools for my kids sports, and how many people got honors. And you can see it on the wall. You can see, great, in the early 90s to mid 90s, it was in a class of 200 graduates, you had 25 honor students. And now in a class of 200 graduates, you might have 120 honor students. And I'm like,
Everyone gets
man,
a
are they
medal. Yeah.
just that much smarter?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where were we?
Times
But
have
I think,
changed.
wow. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Times
Yeah.
have changed.
I think it's that. I think it's also social media, that if you do one wrong thing, and it's posted online, and everybody hears about it, it's such a much bigger consequence than if you just did something silly and people talked about it. Um, you know, uh, College applications can go down the drain. You can get kicked out of your house. There's a real consequence to not being a perfect individual. Um, and there's a real anxiety about impressing and making sure that your supervisor is thinks you're amazing. And so it's a lot of deprogramming and a lot of trust building that you have to do with your staff, and that takes time. And hopefully what you're doing is you're linking that lesson to your to your campers, and making those connections with your staff members, that if you role model trying and not being successful to your kids, what are you giving them? What's the gift that you're giving them? And when you frame it that way for staff members, I tend to believe that that lesson's easier um, digested. So bringing that forward for them to understand it's a value within your organization because you're role modeling for your kids, and being really frustrated with yourself after making a mistake. What message are we telling our kids?
Can can I, because I feel like we're veering off the topic. I want to drag us back because I feel like we are talking about young people. Like we're talking about young people at camp trying new things and the difficulties. But if we're talking about being stuck in doing things the old way,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, I think about our older staff, who have either been with us for a very long time or just in themselves, like in their 60s or whatever.
Right.
And you can't tell them anything, you know, like you just can't tell them anything because like not only has this worked, it's worked for them for decades. And then here I come, so much younger,
So
talking
much
about
younger.
talking about, well, actually, no, we have to do this the other way. So I think that's actually a really different problem than getting young people to step up to the plate, because I think we've had that conversation before on this podcast. So what do we do with our other staff who either are older or have been with us for so long? Like, how do we make them unstuck? That's a question I'm asking because I'm asking for a friend. Just kidding. The friend is me. Tell me.
Yes, so that's how we've always done it, crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think one of the things that I wanted to, the things that a couple of you have said that made me want to say as part of this conversation, that if you're a new camp director listening to this conversation, you grow to understand that camp has cycles that are 3 or 4 years long. At that point, kid that's been there for 4 years, they are either too young to remember the thing that happened 4 years, or they're a kid and 1.5 million things have happened since that great program night those many years ago. So you can cycle things if you've got it down. But I don't want to lose what Chris is saying. How do we get to those folks? And it may be age, it may not. It may be just those folks who find a lot of comfort in tradition. And how do we get to those people to do it? And I think part of that to me is one, clearly stating from always that we're a place that's about change, and two, noticing that person taking the smallest risks and encouraging them in doing that. It's like that was really hard. Like that often people who are motivated by tradition and find a lot of comfort in that are not necessarily the get in front of people and laugh and jump and sing and scream people. But when we can encourage them, doing some of those things or trying a new way of doing things and noticing that and celebrating that, then that I think is among the first steps to creating that in them. It's like honoring their love of tradition while celebrating when they try something new.
Yeah, I think at some level that is the way that those traditionalists, if you want to call them that, they find their comfort in that. And I think from my perspective, these are the dangerous people on boards of directors, right? The people
Yeah.
who join.
Always.
Years ago, I did some work for a camp here in Ontario who had a group of 4, because the board didn't have a great selection process. They just allowed these 4 people to join as a group who had all been on staff together in like the late 80s, early 90s, and they just wanted anything that had changed from then till now. They wanted to go the director to go back to it, and it led to that director leaving that camp fairly quickly, even though he had been there for 15 years. And I
That's
think
a
those
shame.
it is. And I think this is the challenge with, I don't think they think they're stuck. I think they think they're trying to bring back glory days. But what we realize the longer we're in camping is every summer is a glory day to somebody. Right? Like, and that's where you let Chris, I can't tell you the numbers of times I've said to somebody, they've come with an idea. So remember, they're working within our framework. My framework is not written out as stringently as yours framework, but it's a framework. And they're like, well, I would like to change this thing that we do. And I will say, oh, well, we tried that, 7 or 8 years ago, and here are the challenges we had, and that's why we do it this way now. And they'll say, well, I think I can, it won't happen to me. And there's a time where you as someone in charge, you just need to let it happen. You need to let them fail. I always say this to my CIT director: let the
Because Joe,
schedules.
there could be times that it doesn't fail and it is a big delta, like a big positive change.
Correct.
Mhm.
I haven't quite seen that, but yeah, there could be. But it's this idea that it could happen. We're camp people are infinite hopers. We 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 have hope. We have hope that camp is going to run this summer, right? We have hope that coronavirus COVID-19 could disappear tomorrow. But uh right, it's when you're dealing with traditionalists, they have hope that bringing back the old will give the other people that same amazing experience they have. So I think they have their heart in the right place, but they just don't have the concept of how much change has happened in 20 or 30 years.
And it's such a like it feels like such a no-brainer. Like you can't make camp great again. Like it's great. Like it's great. And like the way that you experienced 10, 15 years ago, like kids are just different. I mean, I know that's from the beginning of my camp career to now, kids are so wildly different. It's a different generation. And I would be ridiculous. Like I couldn't bring back the things, camp games and things that we did in 1994. That just it's a different level of where kids are. Um,
Yep.
so the traditionalists, like from the outset, they're failing. They're failing at the minimum, and I like how to deal with that. That's something I'm still working on. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Was it you, Joe, or Travis? I can't remember who said this, but like stating that this is a place about change. We move forward. We don't go back. We try new things. We take the old things and rework them. I think that has to be part of your foundation when people come on board. Whenever you start that, it's just you have to grow with that. And so people understand that, like, no, we're not going back. We can go back and reference, but we're certainly not wholesale repeating something we did, especially like 10 years ago. 20 years ago, kids didn't even have social media. Like their brains work differently. Think about that. Like
100%,
their
yeah.
brains have been trained to work differently now. It's
Mhm.
wild.
Mhm. Chris, that is an excellent place for us to wrap up. So thank you for tying a bow on this one.
No problem. I'm here every other week.
Excellent. Right on. Well, thank you to the three of you for your thoughts on getting your camp unstuck. The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Ultra Camp. Do you remember why you got into camp in the first place? Sometimes it's hard for us with all of the busy work involved in running camp to remember why we do this in the first place. Ultra Camp helps you get back to what you love and why you're at camp. So what does that mean? It means not stressing about budget stuff. Ultra Camp has a low minimum entry fee to get started using their product. They have clear pricing with no hidden costs. They have flexible payment terms, and they have no long-term contracts. So you can stop worrying about that one piece when you think about your information management within your camp program. Exclusive to CampHacker listeners, for a limited time, you get free setup if you tell them that you heard about this on the CampHacker podcast. If you think that this sounds too good to be true, you should definitely talk to the folks at Ultra Camp because they'd love to show you a future where you finally have the time to get back to what's really important, running camp for kids. So please visit their website, summercampsoftware.com/camphacker, and set up a time to chat. They look forward to meeting you. So that brings us to our tool of the week. When people come on the show, we ask them to bring something to share with you, our listeners and watchers, that makes them be a better camp director. Gab, I'd be interested to know what your tool of the week is this week.
My tool of the week is blue light glasses that block blue light from your screens. I thought this was a hoax. I didn't think this actually worked. I just thought it was a thing that came up and it was a scam pretty much. I was getting vicious headaches. And so Jackie, my mother, decided I'm going to buy this is ridiculous. I'm buying you these glasses. And it has made a world of difference. I have 2 pairs now. And I really like the brand TIJN. They have a lot of great selections and price ranges, but there's so many different ones out there. Just make sure it is certified by some sort of certification, I would say. But it really did help. So worked on me.
That's great. Wonderful. Thanks, Gabs. Chris, what's your tool?
So my tool of the week is something people might already be familiar with. If you're anything like me, you find social media confusing and upsetting. I know that doing social media for camp, I would rather do almost anything else. So what's really helpful is Hootsuite, hootsuite.com, hoot like owl, suite like hotel, Hootsuite, one word. And what it does is that you are able to schedule all your posts in like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, not TikTok or Snapchat, sorry. But you can schedule it all ahead of time and it will just release them. This is a godsend. Only because like in the moment I can never remember to post something on Instagram or be like, oh, it's a holiday, I need to, say happy Martin Luther King Day or Merry Christmas or something. Like it's just great to lay the whole thing out, set it, and literally forget it. So check it out. It might work for you. I've returned to it after many years away, and now they've really, just looking at the platform, it's like a little different and it looks better. So enjoy that, everyone.
It's perfect. Thank you, Chris. My tool of the week is something that I've got a lot of use out of this winter, especially since we got a dog. Although I actually purchased these, the original set of these I purchased when we were living at camp full time. And they are little slip-on grippers for your boots on ice called Yaktrax. And I bought them because I spent a couple of winters by myself at camp when we would have ice storms, and it was just impossible to safely get around. And I now use them when I walk the dog. And I've experimented with lots of different kinds of these, kind of went through an Amazon list of different ones, because the ones that I like the best are called Yaktrax. They are basically a rubber framework that slides over your boots, and that the rubber straps are wrapped in metal, and that metal will dig into the snow or ice when you're doing it. You can get ones that look like sports cleats. You can get ones that are like crampons and way too intense for what I need just for needed for getting around camp from building to building or daily walking the dog. I like the Actrax ones because they don't change my gait. Like if I have the ones that are like cleats, it'd be great on deeper snow or ice, but if I'm hit some bare sidewalk, then I'm walking funny and doing that. So the Actrax ones are the best for that. Definitely keep you from falling. I've been thinking about it a little more this week because I actually took a header and hit my head this week quite badly while walking the dog. So I went and bought some more Yaktrax again because I wasn't wearing the no-name ones in between because they were hard to walk in. So went straight out and got some new ones. And they don't last as well as I'd like them to, but they're still the best because I will keep them on my boots all winter long, and they're great for that. So you can find those in our show notes. Joe.
My tool of the week is one of those things that I use literally every day, and I haven't thought to put it as a tool of the week. It is my pillow. I sleep with
but not a My Pillow pillow.
Yeah, it's not a My Pillow pillow. It's an Align Right pillow, and it's a little round tube of a pillow. It's no wider than
Would we call
35
that a bolster?
Isn't
No,
that a
I would call
bolster?
it a pillow. Their tagline is a pillow that fits your head, not your bed. And
Nice.
so on our king bed, trust me, my wife has not let me throw out the king pillow and the pillow with the sham that I'm never supposed to lay my head on. But I have here's why I recommend this pillow. I got it maybe 4 years ago, and I just love it. It is so easy to sleep. It's amazing, and it's fairly inexpensive. It's side sleepers, back sleepers. It works, and it's travelable. So I take it when I go to conferences because I can't sleep with a regular. Trying to sleep with a regular pillow hurts my head. It only supports your. You put your ear on it. It's hard to describe. Go to Align Right in our show notes and see the pillow. It's amazing.
Are you a back sleeper or a side sleeper?
I'm a side sleeper.
Oh, okay. So then it's sort of like it's like
So
rolled
yeah,
up.
no, you put it
It fills the
you
space between your shoulder and your
Yeah,
head.
it
and you
keeps
put
your
your
head.
you put your ear on it. So the top of your head is still sticking out above the pillow. Um
Oh, that's got to
And
take some getting used to. No.
it takes a bit of getting used to. The one thing that really blows my mind is before I got this pillow, I never remembered dreams.
Okay, now you're making a lot of claims that I'm not
Wow.
sure that the Align Right people
I
will
think
support.
I think it aligned something in my spine that allowed dreams to stay in my head.
There you go.
So that they're
The dream alignment pillow endorsed
this is
by
not I am not a
Joseph R.
spokesman. I'm
Richards.
just a guy
No,
who
you're not.
I
Or a scientist. There's a couple of things you're
No.
not, Joe. It's
Sleep
scientist.
scientist.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm neither
Well,
of those
thank you all
things.
for your tools. Okay, if people want to follow up with you, Gab, where can they get in touch with you?
They can check out where I work at waro.com, ouareau.com, and they can contact me at info@waro.com, and they can also follow me on Instagram at Gabrielle Rail, and Rail takes 2 L's.
That's excellent. Thanks for being here, Gab.
Thanks.
Joe, how about you?
If people want to reach out, the easiest way is just to email me at camp, joe@campisbetter.com. You can find out all about Pierce Williams at campisbetter.com. And you can find some weird stuff at yoyojoe.com, yoyojoe.com.
Excellent. Thank you for your weird stuff, Joe.
And you can look for my new TikToks.
Oh.
Woo! If you can find me on TikTok, you can see the weird
Also,
stuff.
Yo-Yo Joe?
No, I'm not going to tell you what I am on TikTok. You're going to have to search for it.
Which is weird because one episode you gave out your phone number, but now you're being weird about your TikTok handle.
I'll give out my phone number again, 519-636-4285. Call me if you want to talk. Not my TikTok handle, though.
Mercy. Okay. Hi. Okay. Hey everyone, if you want to check out, want to learn more about Camp Highlight, you can check us out camphighlight.com or on Instagram at Camp Highlight. You can find me on Instagram at PlanetChris1, and you can slide into my DMs. I will respond to you. Or you can just email me if you want to be an old, and that's at chris@camphighlight.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the three of you once again for the show. If you want to find our show notes, please go to camphacker.tv/podcast. And I look forward to sharing all of that stuff there. You can find this and previous episodes at camphacker.tv/podcast. If you have questions or show ideas or things that we need to cover on the CampHacker show, please email me, Travis@gocamp.pro. Thanks for the evening, friends.